An American fighter, Eric Sloane, travels to Thailand to train at the Muay Thai fighting school belonging to Master Tong Po. Eric pulls up and knocks but is met by the doorman Kavi, who closes the doors on him. Eric is not deterred, even offering cash for the chance to train with the master. Kavi grabs the cash from Eric and eventually opens the door, allowing him inside. Suddenly, Kavi attacks Eric, wanting to test his skills before he can get past. Eric drops his bag and tries to attack Kavi, but the bulky man tanks the hits and knocks Eric back with some powerful blows. They end up in an open area with other fighters now cheering them on. Eric is being totally dominated, but eventually gathers himself and manages to knock Kavi back with a powerful kick. Another fighter named Storm steps up and decides to face Eric. Eric barely manages to hold his own against Storm and manages to land a blow, but Storm puts him down with a powerful kick. Eric is accepted into the training camp and is tasked with doing his laundry alongside Kavi. While there, Kavi tries to steal Eric's wallet full of cash. Eric finds him out and lets him put back the wallet but allows him to keep the cash. That night all the fighters are gathered when Master Po reveals himself to them, and turns out to be a Drax variant. Master Po silently steps up to a solid concrete post, and begins to land powerful kicks and elbows until the stone falls apart to the cheers of the students. After a few exhibition matches overseen by Master Po, the master retreats to his section while Eric observes him keenly. Later that night while the fighters are asleep, Eric silently gets out of bed with a gun in his hand and goes to find Master Po, but the master is already expecting him. Eric holds him at gunpoint but Po is unfazed, telling Eric that his brother was a warrior unlike him. Eric hesitates, which allows Po to disarm him and brutally beat him down. 3 months earlier, Eric and his brother Eric are celebrating Eric becoming world karate champion. The two brothers are sparring when they are approached by Marcia, an old friend of Eric's. Marcia congratulates him, and offers him an opportunity to travel to Thailand to take part in a no-rules tournament. Marcia offers the brothers $200,000 and while Eric is open to the idea, Eric is skeptical and wants more time to think about it. The two argue about the decision after and Eric calls out his brother's arrogance in thinking that he can beat a Muay Thai champion at his sport, but Eric thinks Eric is doubting him and decides to go on his own. A while later, Eric is at his family's gym when he gets an envelope from Eric containing tickets to Thailand and a letter stating that Eric will be fighting in a week's time. Eric races off to Thailand and arrives at the location of Eric's fight just in time to see Eric facing off against Tong Po. Eric watches helplessly as Eric is brutally beaten down by the massive fighter. Tong Po eventually grabs Eric in a headlock, then to everyone's shock, Tong Po snaps his neck, killing him. Suddenly the Thai police raid the building but Eric races to his brother's side and breaks down in tears. Officer Lu picks up the case, urging her superior Watona to investigate Tong Po for murder, but Watona warns her to watch herself. She joins Eric at the morgue as he broods over his brother's body. Marcia comes by to apologize, but Eric thinks that Marcia set Eric up. He grabs her by the neck, but the officers in the room subdue and hold him back before Marcia leaves. An officer brings Eric to a remote location to meet with Eric's Muay Thai trainer Master Durand. Durand gives Eric Eric's winnings in his tournament for his plane fare back home. Eric also blames Durand for not training Eric well enough and sending him to die, but Durand only trains students and cannot control who they fight. Eric is escorted to the airport and warned to leave the country or he will be put in jail. Eric pretends to board his plane, but decides to stay in Thailand. In the present day, Eric wakes up in a cell with Tong Po's lackey Crawford telling him that the cops have been called to arrest him. 2 officers come to take him away but Lou intervenes and escorts Eric safely out. As they are driving away, they notice the street they are on being blocked by cars and men. The men grab Lou, but Eric fights back, taking on multiple attackers and using every skill he has learnt to beat them back. He spots the men dragging Lou away but catches up to them and saves her. Lou takes Eric back to Master Durand, who agrees to shelter him at his dojo until he is well enough to return to America. Eric instead demands that Durand to train him to fight Tong Po, but Durand is hesitant as he failed Eric. Eric tries attacking Durand but gets dropped easily with powerful blows. Eric jumps back to his feet but finds himself back on the ground once more. Despite not being able to land a hit, Eric tries over and over to get to his feet until Durand gets fed up and drops him with a strong kick. Durand, recognizing his determination, agrees to train him. That night as Eric sleeps, 2 figures quickly strap him to the bed with ropes. Durand instantly begins his training, beating him with a stick to numb his nerves. For the next few weeks, Eric is put through a rigorous training routine, strengthening his bones and muscles to adapt to the Muay Thai style. One evening, Durand launches an attack at Eric, but this time, Eric evades and is able to trade blows with the master. Eric declares that he is ready and manages to counter Durand's strikes and pull a kick from hitting the master. That night, Durand takes Eric to a local underground fight club, where Durand gets Eric signed up to face the Fight Club champion, a massive man. Kurt is skeptical but jumps in anyways, trading blows but ends up getting thrown around and dropped by the powerful man. None of Kurt's strikes can connect and the man ends up tossing him like a rag doll and tackling him through walls. Durand, unable to watch the beat down, steps in and knocks the man out with powerful kicks before helping Kurt out. The next day, Lu visits Durand's compound, angry at Kurt for going after Tong Po. She warns that she was ordered to arrest him and will be forced to, unless he follows her instructions. As she leaves, suddenly Kavi turns up, telling Kurt that Tong Po kicked him out. Durand does not trust Kavi, thinking that Tong Po sent him. Kavi mocks Durand for not training Eric, causing Durand to attack him. Durand pushes Kavi back with powerful strikes, but Kavi gets a strike in and knocks Durand back. The master gets serious, removing his clothing, before executing a brutal beatdown of Kavi, knocking him into a table. Kavi admits that Tong Po sent him, but decides to join Durand and help Kurt train to defeat him. With Durand and Kavi helping him, Kurt's training accelerates at a tremendous pace until he is able to push Kavi back, keep up with another female student and impress Durand, who declares that he is ready. The next night, Kurt barges into Tong Po's compound, beating back the fighters present and shouting for Tong Po to reveal himself. Tong Po steps out with the rest of his men surrounding Kurt, but instead of facing him, Tong Po sends Storm to face him instead. This time, however, Kurt easily beats Storm down before finishing him off in style. Another bulky fighter steps out to face Kurt and gets some strikes in, but Kurt gathers himself and knocks the man out with a strong elbow. Seeing this, Tong Po accepts Kurt's challenge to fight. Meanwhile, the Thai police overhear the plans for a match from their surveillance team and pass the info over to Lu. Watona then secretly meets with Marcia, informing her that the police know that she is arranging the fight and Lu has her place bugged. Knowing this, Marcia feeds Lu bad intel and leads her and her team into a trap. They arrive at a warehouse and instantly come under heavy gunfire, forcing her team to cover. During the gunfight, Lu manages to hit the shooter, who turns out to be a police officer, revealing the plot. That night Lu turns up to Kurt's home. She is mad at him for going after Tong Po, but reveals her feelings for Kurt and the two engage in demonetizing activities. The next day, Lu surprisingly has her men arrest Durand and Kurt and put them in jail to stop Kurt from fighting. Lu then learns from Watona that all charges on Kurt have been dropped and she must release him, but Lu refuses and warns him that she is investigating police corruption also. Later, a lone cop comes to check but only sees Durand in his cell. The guard comes in but gets knocked out by Kurt hiding in the ceiling. The two begin to make their escape, with Kurt beating down the cops sent after them. The two escape to the street, battling the chasing officers and knocking them all out before escaping to the fight. That night, the arena is buzzing with shouting people eagerly awaiting the showdown in the same arena where Eric died. Kurt steps out with Durand to the ring, being introduced by the announcer as the revenge-seeking brother. Tong Po himself then steps out with the crowd cheering his name. Durand prepares Kurt, telling him to focus and he will be able to defeat Tong Po once and for all. The two men then face each other, with Tong Po asking Kurt if he is ready to die. The men take their stances. Kurt unleashes powerful strikes, but Tong Po tanks them all. With one powerful punch, Kurt is sent flying to the ground. Kurt easily recovers, not pulling his punches, but Tong Po's defense is impenetrable. Tong Po knocks Kurt down again and again, not allowing Kurt a moment to unleash his skills. For the second round, both fighters are given the chance to choose a glass weapon. Both fighters press broken glass into their hand wrappings before facing each other once more. Kurt evades well, but ends up taking a few hits, dropping him. Tong Po, however, begins to unload on Kurt, beating him bloody to the cheers of the crowd. Kurt manages to strike Tong Po, which angers him, causing him to strike Kurt mercilessly. Despite his injuries, Kurt rises, brawling with Tong Po and managing to get a punch in. Tong Po tries to finish Kurt off with powerful strikes, but the round comes to an end, saving him. Outside, Lu and a team of officers arrive at the location. Durand urges Kurt to remain focused and remember why he came to fight. Lu and her team encounter Marcia and place her under arrest, but when she sees Kurt standing in the ring focused and ready, she decides to not stop the match. For the final round, both fighters are given two swords to fight to the death. The two trade swift blows, Kurt not losing a step and evading Tong Po's strikes. Tong Po manages to disarm Kurt, who barely hangs on with one sword, but skillfully disarms Tong Po before he is knocked down. Tong Po grabs Kurt in a choke hold, trying to knock him out, but Kurt, remembering how his brother died and how Tong Po mocked him, manages to break free from the chokehold and knock Tong Po down with a strong kick. Both men slowly rise to their feet, with Kavi leading the crowd to chant Kurt's name. Kurt stands bravely. This time Tong Po is met with some powerful punches, stunning him and sending him stumbling. Unable to regain his footing, Tong Po charges wildly but gets suplexed to the ground. Tong Po painfully rises to his feet. Dazed and weakened. Kurt uses the chance to use every skill in his book to send Tong Po stumbling back, before finishing him off with a spectacular kick. Tong Po gets to his feet and grabs Kurt, trying to use a sword lodged in the fence nearby to kill him, but Kurt uses all his strength to turn the tables and kill Tong Po with the blade. Kurt then stands before the cheering crowd, now the champion. The next day, Kurt and Lou leave on a boat, with Duran waving goodbye. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you can watch more movies like this. Thanks for watching.